In the year 1500, a new story started for a big land in South America. A man from Portugal named Pedro Alvarez Cabral started a trip from a city called Lisbon. He was in charge of 13 big ships. Their main plan was to go to India. They wanted to take the same path another explorer, Vasco da Gama, had found, but their trip didn't go as planned. The ships went more to the west than they meant to. Some people think it was a mistake. Others think they did it on purpose, like a secret trip. No matter why, this change in plans changed everything for Portugal and for the land that would become Brazil. On April 22, 1500, a sailor yelled, "Terra a vista!" That means land in sight. After many weeks on the ocean, the sailors were happy and felt better. They saw a mountain. Cabral called it Monte Pascoal because it was Easter time. The ships from Portugal stopped near the land. The land was green and had lots of plants. It was full of plants and animals they had never seen before. The people who already lived there, called the Tupiniquim, watched from the beach. They wondered about the new people and were careful. This first meeting was calm. It was the start of a long relationship that would have good and bad parts. The explorers from Portugal were very surprised by what they saw. The land had many good things from nature. One special thing was a type of wood. This wood made a red color. It was called pau-brasil, or Brazil wood. This wood would later give the country its name, Brazil. A man named Pero Vaz de Caminha, who wrote things down for the trip, wrote a long letter. He sent it to the King of Portugal. In the letter, he told about how beautiful the land was. He also wrote that the people there seemed very simple and good. He said the land would be a good place for people to come and live. This letter is a very important paper from history. For the first few days they looked around the coast. The Portuguese had the first Catholic church service in the new land. This was a way to say the land was theirs and that they wanted to share their religion. Cabral said the land belonged to the King and Queen of Portugal. He called it Ilha de Vera Cruz, which means the Island of the True Cross. Later, the name changed to Terra de Santa Cruz, Land of the Holy Cross. In the end, it was called Brazil, because of the Brazil wood. At first, Portugal wasn't very interested in starting towns there right away. For some years, they cared more about trading spices with Asia, but finding this land was like planting a seed for a big kingdom in the future. For the first 30 years after 1500, Portugal didn't pay much attention to Brazil. They were mostly busy with the spice trade in Asia, which made a lot of money. Only a few trips were made to Brazil. People mostly came to cut down Brazilwood trees and send the wood away. Pirates from France also started coming to the coast. They also wanted the special Brazil wood. The King of Portugal got worried about these French visitors. He knew he had to protect the land he said was his. He decided to start sending people to live in this big new land. This choice would really change Brazil's future in a big way. It got things ready for a special way of life and making money. In 1534, King John III of Portugal cut Brazil into 15 pieces of land. These were called captaincies and families could pass them down. Each piece of land was given to a rich man from Portugal. These men were called donatarios. They had a lot of power. It was their job to make their lands better. They had to get people to come live there and protect the land. But this way of doing things didn't work very well. Most of these captaincies didn't do well. This happened for many reasons. They didn't have enough supplies, they fought with the local people, and the lands were very, very big. Only two of them, Pernambuco and São Vicente, did really well, mostly because of sugarcane. Sugarcane became the most important thing for making money in the colony. The weather and the dirt in the northeast part of Brazil were just right for growing sugarcane. Big farms, called engenhos, were started. These engenhos weren't just farms. They were like big businesses with machines to turn the sugarcane into sugar. Sugar was worth a lot of money in Europe. It was like white gold. Because so many people wanted sugar, more and more of these big farms were made. This made a kind of society where rich farm owners had most of the power. This way of farming needed a lot of workers. It was very hard work in the hot sun. At first, the Portuguese tried to make the local people slaves. They made them work on the sugarcane farms, but this was hard to do. Many local people died from sicknesses that came from Europe. Others fought hard against being slaves or ran away into the big forests. So the Portuguese started bringing enslaved people from Africa. Millions of people from Africa were forced to come to Brazil. They came from different places in Africa. The trip on the slave ships was terrible. In Brazil, their lives on the farms were very hard and cruel. This sad business of slavery went on for hundreds of years. It really changed who lived in Brazil, its culture, and how people lived together. It made a society where people were not treated equally at all. In the early 1800s, big changes came to Brazil. These changes started because of things happening far away in Europe. A man named Napoleon Bonaparte was taking over many parts of Europe. In 1807, he gave Portugal a strong warning. Portugal had to stop British ships from coming to its ports. Britain was Napoleon's biggest enemy. The leader of Portugal, Prince Dom João, had a tough choice. If he listened to Napoleon, he would make Britain angry, and Britain was Portugal's old friend. If he didn't listen to Napoleon, French soldiers would attack Portugal. He had to decide quickly, and it was a hard choice. Dom João made a brave and surprising choice. He decided to move everyone in the Portuguese royal family and government to Brazil. This was a huge job. In November 1807, many ships left Lisbon. They carried the royal family, rich people, government workers, and all the king's money. Thousands of people made the trip. The trip across the Atlantic Ocean was long and very hard. Storms separated the ships. When they finally got to Brazil in early 1808, they first landed in a city called Salvador, in Bahia. Then, they went to Rio de Janeiro. This city would become the new main city of the Portuguese kingdom. When the royal family arrived in Rio de Janeiro, it was a very important moment. It changed the city very quickly, almost like overnight. Rio became the main place for politics and running a worldwide kingdom. Dom João quickly did important things. He opened Brazil's ports so friendly countries could trade, especially Great Britain. This stopped an old rule. Now Brazil could trade right with other countries. This helped Brazil's money situation get better. He also started many new important places. These included the Bank of Brazil, a school for soldiers, and a big library. He also made a school for doctors and a special garden for plants. These changes helped Brazil become more modern and move forward. Having the royal court there made culture grow. New newspapers were started. The king helped artists and scientists. Rio de Janeiro grew very fast. It became a fancier city, but it cost a lot of money to have the court there. This meant people had to pay more taxes, and some Brazilians were not happy about it. But the biggest change was how people felt. Brazilians started to think their land was more important. It wasn't just a colony anymore. It was the home of the Portuguese kingdom. This helped people in Brazil feel more like they belonged to their own nation. After Napoleon lost in 1815, things changed again. Dom João VI became king of Portugal and Brazil. He made Brazil a kingdom just like Portugal. It was now joined with Portugal. This meant Brazil was not just a colony anymore. But people in Portugal started to really want the king to come back. The Portuguese people were not happy. They felt like their country was being run from Brazil. In 1820, there was a big change in Portugal called a revolution. The people who started it wanted new laws called a constitution. They also wanted the king to come back to Lisbon right away. King Dom João VI finally gave in. In April 1821, he sailed back to Portugal. He left his son, Dom Pedro, in charge of Brazil. The government in Portugal, called the Cortes, tried to make Brazil less important. They wanted to control it directly like a colony again. They told Dom Pedro to come back to Portugal too. Many people in Brazil did not want this. They had gotten used to having some freedom. They didn't want to be just a colony again. A very important man named José Bonifácio de Andrada e Silva gave Dom Pedro advice. He told him to say no to Portugal. The problems between Brazil and Portugal got bigger. People in Brazil, rich and poor, started to want to be independent. They wanted to keep the freedom and the money benefits they now had. On January 9, 1822, Dom Pedro got a letter signed by many people. It asked him to stay in Brazil. In response, he famously declared, "Se para o bem de todos e felicidade geral da nação, estou pronto, digam ao povo que fico." This means, if it is for the good of everyone and the happiness of the nation, I am ready, tell the people that I will stay. This day became known as Dia do Fico, which means I Stay Day. The big break happened a few months later. Dom Pedro was traveling in a place called Sao Paulo. On September 7, 1822, he got new orders from Portugal. These orders tried to take away even more of his power. Near the Ipiranga River, he made a very important decision. He pulled out his sword and shouted, "Independencia ou morte." This means independence or death. This event is known as the Grito do Ipiranga, Cry of Ipiranga. It was when Brazil said it was independent from Portugal. On December 1, 1822, Dom Pedro became Emperor Pedro I of Brazil. A new kingdom started in the Americas. Scene 5, The Time of Black Gold, How Coffee Changed the Nation. After Brazil became independent, it had many problems as a new kingdom. The first few years when Emperor Dom Pedro I was king were shaky. He gave up being king in 1831 and his young son Dom Pedro II took over. While Dom Pedro II was king for a long time, a new plant started to be grown. This plant would really change Brazil's money and how people lived. This plant was coffee. People started calling it ouro negro, or black gold. Coffee farming began to spread very fast. It started in a place called the Paraíba Valley, between Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. The weather and the dirt there were perfect for growing coffee. Coffee quickly became the most important thing Brazil sold to other countries. It took the place of sugar as the main thing making money for Brazil. People all over the world wanted more coffee, especially in Europe and North America. Because of this, many more big coffee farms called fazendas were started. These fazendas needed a lot of workers. At first, enslaved people from Africa were forced to work on the coffee farms. Life was very hard for them. The work was very tough, from planting and picking the coffee to getting the beans ready. The money made from coffee created a new group of rich and powerful people. These were the coffee barons, or big bosses. As the 1800s went on, more people wanted to end slavery. Britain especially pushed Brazil to stop the buying and selling of slaves. Buying and selling slaves was officially stopped in 1850, but having slaves was still allowed for many more years. The coffee farm owners needed new workers. The government of Brazil started to ask people from Europe to come and live there. Many people, especially from Italy, Portugal, Spain and Germany, came to Brazil. They were looking for a better life. Many of them went to work on the coffee farms in São Paulo. All these new people made the population of Brazil even more mixed. The big success of coffee helped the country's money situation grow a lot. People made a lot of money selling coffee. This money helped make parts of Brazil more modern. Trains were built to take coffee from the farms to the ports to be shipped away. Cities like São Paulo grew very fast. They became important places for business and money. Coffee was the main thing in Brazil's economy for many years. It affected the country's government and how people lived. But depending so much on just one crop also made the economy weak if something went wrong. If coffee prices around the world changed, it could cause big problems for Brazil. This, depending on one thing, would cause problems later on. Scene 6, the Vargas Times, a new path for Brazil. The time in Brazil, called the Old Republic, which was mostly run by rich coffee families, ended in 1930. A big change, like a revolution, put a man named Getulio Vargas in charge. This was the start of a new time that really changed Brazil's history. The time Vargas was in charge, called the Vargas era, lasted for 15 years from 1930 to 1945. It brought huge changes to the country's government, its money, and how people lived. Vargas was a complicated man. He was a leader who was popular with many people, but he also ruled like a strong boss. He wanted to make Brazil more modern and make the main government stronger. He had a very big and long-lasting effect on the country. At first, Vargas ruled as a temporary president. He took more power for the main government, making the different states weaker. He focused on making the whole country better and building more factories. Brazil was still mostly a farming country. Vargas thought that growing factories was very important for Brazil to get better. He made rules to help businesses inside Brazil grow. He also started new government departments. In 1934, new main laws were made, but Vargas started to rule more and more like a strong boss. He had people against him from different political sides. These problems in politics gave him a reason to take even more power. In 1937, Vargas took over completely. He started a dictatorship called the Estado Novo, or New State. He got rid of political groups and stopped people who disagreed with him. News was controlled, and people who were against him were punished. Even though he was a strong boss, the new state kept trying to make Brazil more modern. Vargas tried to make people feel like one united country. He spent money on big building projects like roads and dams. He also made important new laws for workers. A set of laws called the CLT was made in 1943. This gave workers new rights and ways to be safe. These included a minimum amount of money they had to be paid time off, and help to keep their jobs. These things made Vargas popular with working people. The Vargas era ended in 1945. Brazil had joined the good guys in World War II. It seemed strange for Brazil to fight for freedom in other countries when it was ruled by a strong boss at home. More and more people wanted to have democracy again. The army made Vargas quit, but his ideas and influence stayed. He came back as president in 1951, this time chosen by the people. The things he did had prepared Brazil to build more factories. He really changed the way the government and the people related to each other. The Vargas era is still a very important time to understand Brazil today. It helped Brazil become a country with many industries. Scene 7. The hard years, the army in charge. After Vargas, Brazil had a time with democracy, but the governments were often shaky. In the early 1960s, there were money problems, and people in politics disagreed a lot. The Cold War, a big disagreement between powerful countries, was also important. Many people in Brazil who liked old ways were afraid that President João Goulart was taking the country towards communism. Goulart suggested some big changes, like giving land to more people and having the government control more of the money. These ideas worried the army, rich business people, and the United States. All this worry led to the army taking over. On March 31, 1964, the Brazilian army removed President João Goulart from power. This was the start of a time when the army ruled. It would last for 21 years, until 1985. The army leaders said they took over to save Brazil from communism and from dishonest people. They promised to bring peace and help the country's money situation get better. Different army generals took turns being president. The main group of lawmakers, Congress, was often ignored or closed down. People lost many of their political freedoms. The army rulers wanted to make Brazil strong, modern, and safe in their own way. The army rule became tougher and tougher on people, especially after 1968. In that year, the government made a new rule called Institutional Act No. 5, or AI-5. This rule gave the president power like a dictator. It meant people could be arrested for political reasons without a quick trial. It let the government close Congress and control the news. Many Brazilians who were against the army rulers were arrested, hurt badly, or forced to leave the country. Political groups were not allowed, and later only 2 groups controlled by the government were allowed. Even with all the harsh rules, the country's money situation did very well for a few years. The economy grew fast, helped by money borrowed from other countries and money spent by the government. During this time, big projects like roads and dams were built, but this economic miracle didn't last. By the mid-1970s, prices were going up very fast, and Brazil owed a lot of money to other countries. Also, the gap between rich and poor people got bigger. The good things from the growing economy didn't reach everyone fairly. People became more and more unhappy with the army rulers. Different groups started to ask for democracy to come back. These groups included students, smart people, artists, workers' groups, and some people from the Catholic Church. The army government started a slow and careful process to open up politics again. This was called abertura. This process was controlled by the rulers. It finally led to the end of the army rule in 1985. These anos de chumbo, or years of lead, left deep and painful marks on the people of Brazil. Scene 8. A new start. Democracy and growth after the army rule. When the army rule ended in 1985, it was a new start for Brazil. The change to democracy happened slowly and through talks. Tancredo Neves was picked to be the first president who wasn't from the army, but he got sick and died before he could start his job. The person who was going to be his vice president, José Sarney, became president instead. Sarney's government had huge problems. These included prices going up very fast and people asking for things they couldn't ask for during many years. One of the most important jobs was to write new main laws for the country. This would set up the rules for a democratic Brazil. In 1988, these new main laws were made. It was called the Citizen Constitution. It gave back important rights and freedoms to the people. It also gave more rights to help people in society. The new laws promised that people could vote directly for president and that people could speak freely and have a free news media. It also set up a way for society to include everyone more and be more democratic. The first time people voted directly for president since 1960 was in 1989. Fernando Collor de Mello was chosen. When he was president, there were money problems and a big scandal about him being dishonest. This led to him being removed from his job in 1992. This was a hard time, but it showed that Brazil's new democratic ways were strong. The 1990s were a time when the money situation was not steady. Brazil had a big problem with prices going up extremely fast. Different plans to fix the money were tried, but they didn't work very well. In 1994, a new plan called the Real Plan was started by the money minister, Fernando Henrique Cardoso. He later became president. The Real Plan worked. It made the money steady and stopped prices from going up so fast. This made the money situation more calm and sure. It allowed the country to grow again and spend money on helping people. When Cardoso was president, Brazil made its democracy even stronger. It also opened up its businesses to the world and sold some government companies to private owners. These changes helped make the country more modern and connect it with the world's economy. In the early 2000s, there was more progress with money and helping people. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who used to be a leader for workers, was chosen as president in 2002. His government kept the money situation steady. It also started big programs to help people, like Bolsa Familia. This program gave money to poor families. These actions helped make fewer people poor and made things more equal. Brazil had a time when its economy grew a lot, mostly because it sold things like farm products and minerals to other countries. The country also became more important in the world. Brazil started to be an important voice in big world meetings. The time after the army rule has been a journey of making democracy stronger and trying to make life fair for everyone. Scene 9. Brazil and the world, its past and its future. Today, in 2025, Brazil is an important country in the world. It's the biggest country in Latin America. It has a lot of land, many good things from nature, and over 200 million people from all different backgrounds. Brazil is a country where people vote for their leaders, and its economy is always changing. It helped start groups like the United Nations and Mercosur. It's also part of a group called BRICS, with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These are countries whose economies are growing fast. This shows Brazil is becoming more important in world events. Brazil is important when countries talk about world trade, changes in the weather, and how to grow without hurting the planet. Brazil's economy is one of the biggest in the world. It does many different things, with strong farming, mining, making things in factories and services. The country sells a lot of things like soybeans, iron, coffee, and meat to other countries. It also has good factories that make things like airplanes, cars, and other products. But Brazil still has big money challenges. These include some people having a lot more money than others, too many complicated rules for businesses and needing better roads and things like that. The country keeps working to grow in a way that lasts and includes everyone. It wants to give better chances to all its people. Making sure the economy stays strong and can compete with other countries is very important. The Amazon rainforest is a very important part of Brazil's history and something the whole world cares about. It's the biggest tropical rainforest in the world. It does a very important job in helping control the world's weather. It also has an amazing number of different plants and animals. Keeping the Amazon safe from people cutting down trees and helping the area grow in a good way are big challenges. Brazil wants to take care of nature. It also knows it needs to help its economy grow at the same time. What happens to the Amazon is super important, not just for Brazil but for the whole world. Countries need to work together to solve these difficult nature problems. Brazil's culture is very rich and exciting. It's a mix of native, European, African, and Asian people and their ways of life. You can see this mix in its music, dance, art, books, and food. Samba and bossa nova are famous kinds of Brazilian music known all over the world. Carnival is a huge, amazing party that celebrates life and culture. Brazilian soccer is something everyone in the country loves, and Brazil has been very good at it in the world. People everywhere know that Brazilians are friendly and very creative. As Brazil looks to what's next, it brings all this wonderful culture with it. It tries to build a country that is more fair, rich, and good for the planet, while sharing its special way of being with